I'm Cadet Tyler Krause, and on behalf of the Professor of Military Science, Lieutenant Colonel Justin Schaefer, I would like to welcome Widener Board of Trustees, General Retired John Tillelli, and Honorable Patrick Murphy, Widener University President Julie Woolman, and Colonel Trevor Benningkamp, and the officers, non-commissioned officers, honored guests, staff members, and cadets of the Dauntless Battalion. Welcome to the 2019 Army ROTC Commissioning Ceremony. Ladies and gentlemen, please rise for the national anthem. Please be seated. Today we will commission a total of 21 cadets from Widener, Villanova, Westchester, Neumann, and Penn State universities. Ladies and gentlemen, it is now my honor to present Lieutenant Colonel Justin Schaefer, the Professor of Military Science.
Good morning. This is the Pennsylvania mornings I've grown up loving and enjoying, unlike the last week. It seems like we've got nothing but rain. So good morning. Good morning, and thank you for attending our ceremony today. Before we start, I want to take a moment and thank our support team within the ROTC department, Widener University. Because of their work, we're able to focus on the soon-to-be second lieutenants seated to my left. Thank you to the distinguished guests, alumni, friends, and family. This is a great day for each of these soon-to-be officers and a proper way to value their service, determination, and accomplishment. Our guest of honor and speaker today made special time from his schedule at the Pentagon, where he works for the Office of the Chief of Staff of the Army. Colonel Trevor Benningkamp was commissioned from West Point in 1992 as an infantry officer. Colonel Benningkamp has served the past 26 years at all levels of staff and command. He currently serves as the Program Division Chief for Legislative Affairs at the Pentagon. I'm sorry, this glare is terrible. Colonel Benningkamp's distinguished career includes commanding up to and including the brigade level, an aide-de-camp, observer controller at the Joint Readiness Training Center, and commander of the International Security Forces, NATO. Colonel Benningkamp's awards and decorations include the Legion of Merit, the Meritorious Service Medal, the Bronze Star Medal, and he is married to Brigadier General Michelle Benningkamp, and they have a son, Gavin, and a daughter, Greer. It is my privilege to introduce to you our guest speaker, Colonel Trevor Benningkamp.
Well, good morning, and Justin, thanks for those kind words and that introduction. It is a beautiful day here, and it's always a great day to be out of the Pentagon, so thanks so much for the opportunity. Distinguished guests, family, friends, and most importantly, members of the Dauntless Battalion, thanks for making time to attend this ceremony here today. President Woolman, thank you for your leadership and commitment to the pursuit of excellence in education and this incredible ROTC program. I greatly appreciate the opportunity to participate in this important commissioning ceremony where 21 young men and women will take the oath to support and defend our Constitution in a time of persistent competition and conflict. Today reminds me of just how small the Army really is. I had the honor to serve with one of the distinguished guests here today in Soldiers for Life, General Tillelli. So when I was a fairly young captain right under the career course, I reported into Korea and assumed duties as the United Nations Command Honor Guard Commander when General Tillelli was the Commander-in-Chief for United Nations Command, Combined Forces Command, and the United States Forces Korea. Sir, it's great to see you again, and thanks for your almost 4 decades of leadership and service in uniform and all that you continue to do for our military family and for this university. Today is very exciting, as I said earlier, because we're welcoming 21 young men and women into one of the most prestigious, challenging, and rewarding and respected roles in our nation, that of an Army officer. I would like to congratulate and thank each of you on your decision to serve our nation. You should be justifiably proud. I would also like to thank and congratulate the families of those being commissioned here today, many of whom have worn our nation's cloth. Thank you for your service and sacrifice. Families are definitely the strength of our soldiers. Your continued support and sacrifice will serve to strengthen the resolve of your loved one to carry out the oath of office, which they will soon take. It takes a great deal of courage and commitment to serve in the Army during a time of persistent conflict. Moreover, it takes strength and understanding as a parent, spouse, or other loved one to support them during these difficult decisions. So thank you. Reflecting back on my own commissioning almost 27 years ago, I would expect that many of you are experiencing feelings of excitement coupled with apprehension and wondering if you're ready to lead soldiers. I would posit that you are, but I would offer a few points to consider as you take the oath today and begin your career. First, readiness is our #1 priority. The Army's mission remains constant to deploy, fight, and win our nation's wars. We live in uncertain times and must be ready both individually and as organizations, both physically and mentally. And as leaders, we must be ready when called. Second, you are a leader. As a commissioned officer of the United States Army, we are expected to set the example both on and off duty, to look out for the health, welfare, morale, good order, and discipline of those entrusted to our care. People, America's sons and daughters, are our most precious resource, and they will not care how much you know until they know how much you care. Third, treat everybody with dignity and respect. It's possible to treat everybody with dignity and respect and have a disciplined unit. I often reflect back on Schofield's definition of discipline and began incorporating it into counseling when I was a battalion commander in Iraq in 2009. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but it goes something like this. The discipline which makes the soldiers of a free country reliable in battle is not to be gained by harsh or tyrannical treatment. On the contrary, it is far more likely to destroy than to make an army. It is possible to impart instruction and give commands in such a manner and such a tone of voice to inspire in them an intense desire to obey, while the opposite manner and tone of voice will destroy rather than make an army. Next, our NCO Corps. The first time you will have as much experience as the NCO you are working with is when you are a battalion commander, so about 18 years in the Army. As a young officer, you have the education and understanding of what it takes to be a good officer and be a moral and ethical leader. Communicate with your NCOs and look to them for professional development and growth. A good relationship with your first platoon sergeant or section sergeant, as well as talking to your battalion command sergeant major or first sergeant, will set you up for success. They will provide you with experience-based feedback and enable you to avoid pitfalls due to inexperience and youthful exuberance. Next, don't be afraid to make mistakes. You got to try things and have a bias for action. As long as you're not making decisions that are illegal, immoral, or unethical, things will turn out all right. I often think back to when I was a young second lieutenant. We went to the Jungle Operations Training Center that was down in Panama. We used to send units to. Towards the end of my exercise, my platoon took a turn into the Mahinga Swamp, and we spent about 2.5 hours going through the swamp trying to find the other side. When we finally made it out of the swamp, I realized that not only had my company commander been following us, but my battalion sergeant major and commander as well. So needless to say, I received a pretty good counseling at that point. But for some reason, they made me the scout platoon leader a couple months later. Again, making mistakes is okay as long as you're not crossing the no Penn line. Ethics, morals, drugs, alcohol, toxic leadership. We tend to learn more from our mistakes than we do from our successes. The Army is people, and the soldiers are the strength of our Army. As leaders, we exist to serve our soldiers and their families. As I mentioned earlier, America's sons and daughters are our most precious resource, and you will soon be charged with their care. Leaders set the tone for their organization. I learned a long time ago that you may not always like the things you have to do in the Army, but you should love being in the Army. Be a positive, optimistic, and inspirational leader regardless of the mission. You may be the main effort. You may be the supporting effort. Embrace each challenge and provide the leadership that our soldiers deserve. I fully acknowledge that every mission is not what we may have envisioned, but embrace what you are given and lead your teams to success. Emotional intelligence. Technical and tactical skills are a prerequisite, but what separates good leaders from great leaders is their ability to deal with people. Understand how you are perceived by others and motivate and inspire them to achieve greatness. You have to face it that bad things are going to happen, regardless of how well prepared you think you are. It's not a question of if, but when. And when bad things happen, it's the great leader who assesses the situation and determines the best way to proceed while providing positive leadership to keep the unit moving in the right direction. And finally, live the oath. Soon you will take the oath to support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic. No one forces us to take this oath. In fact, we take this obligation freely and swear to well and faithfully discharge the duties of the office upon which we are about to enter. I challenge you to live up to the oath each and every day. It is what our nation demands and what our soldiers deserve. In closing, have fun. Serving as an officer in our Army is not easy, but it is one of the most noble and rewarding careers you can imagine. That you have volunteered to join our ranks is to be commended. We exist to serve soldiers and families. We must be passionate about our chosen profession and remember that we are leaders 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. I would be remiss if I did not take the time to recognize the incredible leaders that you have here in the Dauntless Battalion ROTC department. From Colonel Schaefer on down, it's evident that they care about the training that they put together on a daily basis. Their hard work and dedication has prepared you to join the Officers Corps and for the challenges ahead. And before I close, because I just noticed that the Honorable Patrick Murphy has arrived, I'd just like to say, sir, it's great to see you again. As I mentioned about it being a small Army, we actually served together in the Pentagon from 2015 to 2017. Thanks for your service in uniform, your service as an elected member of Congress representing Bucks County, and your service as the Undersecretary and the Acting Secretary of the Army, and all you continue to do for our soldiers and their families to this day. So it's great to see you again, sir. Thanks for choosing a life of service and sacrifice, and thank you again to your loved ones for that unwavering support. As you all know, we live in an ever-changing world fraught with instability. We need young men and women like you to lead our soldiers into the months and years ahead. Welcome to the Army.
The cadets will now rise and move forward to receive the commissioning oath of office, administered by a military officer. At this time, those asked to administer the oath will come forward and stand in front of your cadet.
raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name.
I, James Officer,
Having been appointed an officer in the Army of the United States,
in the Army of the United States,
in the grade of second lieutenant,
in the grade of second lieutenant,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support and defend
that I will support and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
against all enemies,
against all enemies,
foreign and domestic,
foreign and domestic,
and that I will bear true faith
and that I will bear true faith
and allegiance to the same,
and allegiance to the same,
that I take this obligation freely
that I take this obligation freely
without any mental reservation
without any mental reservation
or purpose of evasion,
or purpose of evasion,
and that I will well and faithfully
and that I will well and faithfully
discharge the duties
discharge the duties
upon the office which I'm about to enter.
on the office which I will not enter.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations.
The commissionees may return to their seats. Each newly commissioned officer will now be called forward individually. For the tradition of pinning on and the gold bars represented their new rank of second lieutenant, and for the first salute with the non-commissioned officer. Those of you who have been invited to assist with the pinning on of the rank should come forward as soon as their lieutenant's name is called. Feel free to move forward and take photographs at any time. Our first commissioned officer is Second Lieutenant Timothy Kennard. Lieutenant Kennard graduates from Widener University with a bachelor's degree in civil engineering, and he will enter the Army as an ordnance officer. As a cadet, he completed advanced camp at Fort Knox, Kentucky, and a troop leading training camp at Fort Bliss, Texas. Lieutenant Kennard's oath was administered by Second Lieutenant Jared Becker. Lieutenant Kennard will have his rank pinned on by his parents, Bill and Hope Kennard. He will receive his first salute from Sergeant Major Patrick Compton. The history of the dollar salute. One tradition associated with the hand salute was withstood the test of time. The tradition is a newly appointed officer given a silver dollar to the first enlisted person to salute him after he has received his commission. The exact origin of this custom is arguable. Researchers suggest that it came from the British regiments stationed in colonial America. They brought with them a number of customs and traditions that were retained by newly formed American units. For example, newly commissioned British officers were assigned an enlisted soldier to train them, teach them the regiment's history and traditions, and ensure the officer's kit, dress and field uniforms, and personal equipment were serviceable at all times. Grateful lieutenants often showed their heartfelt gratitude by informally compensating the enlisted man with a small sum of money. This custom continued to grow with the British military and newly formed American units. American second lieutenants in 1816 received a monthly base of $25, a $3 rationale allowance, and $1 for an enlisted advisor. This advisor pay was later discontinued, but the responsibility for teaching the newly commissioned officer continued. The present-day tradition is thought to have its roots in this relationship. The silver dollar is traditionally the only coin given in exchange for the first salute. The coin represents more than $1 in currency. To every new officer, it had a special significance. It represents the symbolic receipt of respect due, a newly earned rank and position. Congratulations, Lieutenant Kennard. Second Lieutenant Robert Dietrich. Lieutenant Dietrich graduates from Widener University with a bachelor's degree in civil engineering and will enter the Army as an engineer officer. As a cadet, he completed advanced camp at Fort Knox, Kentucky. Lieutenant Dietrich's oath was administered by Second Lieutenant Jared Becker. Lieutenant Dietrich will have his rank pinned on by his parents, Bob and Connie Dietrich. He will receive his first salute from his friend, former Army Sergeant Lloyd Knauer. Cadaver, can you please come forward? Congratulations, Lieutenant Beasley. Second Lieutenant Jason Z. Lieutenant Z graduates from Villanova University with a bachelor's degree in psychology, and he will enter the Army as an air defense artillery officer. As a cadet, he completed advanced camp at Fort Knox, Kentucky. Lieutenant Z's oath was administered by his brother, former Army Captain Andrew Z. Lieutenant Z will have his rank pinned on by his parents, Ka Chi Z and Su Chi Lin. He will receive his first salute from Sergeant First Class Charles Mills. Congratulations, Lieutenant Z. Second Lieutenant Joseph Cusick. Lieutenant Cusick graduates from West Chester University with a bachelor's degree in political science, international relations with a minor in Arabic. He will enter the Army as a military intelligence officer. As a cadet, he completed advanced camp at Fort Knox, Kentucky, and airborne school at Fort Penn, Georgia. Lieutenant Cusick's oath was administered by Captain Matthew Pochek. Lieutenant Cusick will have his rank pinned on by his parents, Joseph and Kathleen Cusick. He will receive his first salute from his friend, Sergeant Christian Hahn. Lieutenant Cusick will commission as a distinguished military graduate. Congratulations, Lieutenant Cusick. Second Lieutenant Eric Guzzi. Lieutenant Guzzi graduates from Widener University with a bachelor's degree in political science and international relations. He will enter the Army as an adjunct general officer. As a cadet, he completed advanced camp at Fort Knox, Kentucky. Lieutenant Guzzi's oath was administered by Captain Matthew Pochek. Lieutenant Guzzi will have his rank pinned on by his mother, Lori Guzzi, and grandfather, Joseph Gilroy. He will receive his first salute from his grandfather, former Army Corporal Joseph Gilroy. Lieutenant Guzzi will commission as a distinguished military graduate. Congratulations, Lieutenant Guzzi. Second Lieutenant Patrick Villani. Lieutenant Villani graduates from West Chester University with a bachelor's degree in economics and finance. He will enter the Army as a field artillery officer. As a cadet, he completed advanced camp at Fort Knox, Kentucky, a cultural understanding and leadership program in Argentina. Lieutenant Villani's oath was administered by Captain Matthew Pochek. Lieutenant Villani will now have his rank pinned on by his parents, former Army Captain Scott and Kim Phillips. He will receive his first salute from his friend, Sergeant Christian Hahn. Congratulations, Lieutenant Villani. Second Lieutenant Brandon Young. Lieutenant Young graduates from Westchester University with a bachelor's degree in business management and minor in business law. He will enter the Army as an air defense artillery officer. As a cadet, he completed advanced camp at Fort Knox, Kentucky. Lieutenant Young's oath was administered by Captain Matthew Pochek. Lieutenant Young will have his rank pinned on by his father, Mark Young, his mother, Ella Ross, and his stepfather, Brad Ross. He will receive his first salute from his friend, Specialist Shante Haley. Congratulations, Lieutenant Young. Second Lieutenant James Yaya. Lieutenant Yaya graduates from Penn State University with a bachelor's degree in American Studies and will enter the Army as an infantry officer. As a cadet, he completed advanced camp at Fort Knox, Kentucky, and MS3 leader and trainer at Fort Knox, Kentucky. Lieutenant Yaya's oath was administered by his father, Second Lieutenant retired James Yaya. Lieutenant Yaya will have his rank pinned on by his parents, Second Lieutenant retired James and Jennifer Yaya. He will receive his first salute from his mentor, former Vietnam veteran with the 1st Cav Division, Sergeant Michael Bernard. Congratulations, Lieutenant Yaya. Second Lieutenant Daniel Azarian. Lieutenant Azarian graduates from Villanova University with a bachelor's degree in chemical engineering. He will enter the Army as a chemical officer. As a cadet, he completed advanced camp at Fort Knox, Kentucky. Lieutenant Azarian's oath was administered by Major Michael Rapassi. Lieutenant Azarian will have his rank pinned on by his mother, Laura Azarian, and his grandfather, Brian Kalasmaka. He will receive his first salute from his father, former Navy Petty Officer, 2nd Class, Robert Azarian. Congratulations, Lieutenant Azarian. Second Lieutenant Evan Schultz. Lieutenant Schultz graduates from Villanova University with a major in finance and minors in Mandarin and international business. He will enter the Army as a military intelligence officer. As a cadet, he completed advanced camp at Fort Knox, Kentucky, in cultural property protection internship in China and Project Global Officer in China. Lieutenant Schultz's oath was administered by Major Randall Mueller. Lieutenant Schultz will have his rank pinned on by his mother, Susan Schultz. He will receive his first salute from Sergeant First Class Charles Mills. Congratulations, Lieutenant Schultz. Second Lieutenant Eric Scott. Lieutenant Lieutenant Scott graduates from Villanova University with a bachelor's degree in mathematics and will enter the Army as a signal officer. As a cadet, he completed advanced camp at Fort Knox, Kentucky, and Army Cyber Institute at West Point, New York. Lieutenant Scott's oath was administered by Major Michael Rapaski. Lieutenant Scott will have his rank pinned on by his parents, Paul and Cheryl Scott. He will receive his first salute from Sergeant First Class Charles Mills. Congratulations, Second Lieutenant Scott. Second Lieutenant Justin O'Brien. Lieutenant O'Brien graduates from Widener University with a bachelor's degree in applied sociology and will enter the Army as an engineer officer. As a cadet, he completed advanced camp at Fort Knox, Kentucky, and air assault training at Fort Campbell, Kentucky. Lieutenant O'Brien's oath was administered by Major Brandon Sheard. Lieutenant O'Brien will have his rank pinned on by his parent, Linda O'Brien, and brother, Nicholas O'Brien. He will receive his first salute from Sergeant Major Patrick Compton. Lieutenant O'Brien will commission as a distinguished military graduate. Congratulations, Lieutenant O'Brien. Second Lieutenant Peter Burlett. Lieutenant Burlett graduates from Widener University with a bachelor's degree in mechanical engineering and will enter the Army as a signal officer. As a cadet, he completed advanced camp at Fort Knox, Kentucky. Lieutenant Burlett's oath was administered by Major Brandon Sheard. Lieutenant Burlett will have his rank pinned on by his parents, Jeffrey and Stephanie Burlett. He will receive his first salute from his grandfather, former Air Force Sergeant Edward Lawler. Congratulations, Lieutenant Burlett. Second Lieutenant Joel Murphy. Lieutenant Murphy graduates from Widener University with a bachelor's degree in mechanical engineering and will enter the Army as an armor officer. As a cadet, he completed advanced camp at Fort Knox, Kentucky. Lieutenant Murphy's oath was administered by his grandfather, a Vietnam veteran with the 87th Advisory Team, Lieutenant Colonel retired James Patterson. Lieutenant Murphy will have his rank pinned on by his parents, Charles and Rebecca Murphy. He will receive his first salute from Master Sergeant Richie Pozo. Congratulations, Lieutenant Murphy. Second Lieutenant Christopher Booker. Lieutenant Booker graduates from Westchester University with a master's in human resource management. He will enter the Army as an adjunct general officer. As a cadet, he completed advanced camp at Fort Knox, Kentucky. Lieutenant Booker's oath was administered by Captain Samuel Warren. Lieutenant Booker will have his rank pinned on by his wife, Brittany Booker, and his aunt, Brenda Sergey. He will receive his first salute from Sergeant Major Patrick Compton. Congratulations, Lieutenant Booker. Second Lieutenant Eric Ellis. Eric Ellis. Lieutenant Ellis graduates from Westchester University with a master's degree in Holocaust and Genocide Studies. He will enter the Army as a military intelligence officer. As a cadet, he completed advanced camp at Fort Knox, Kentucky. Lieutenant Ellis' oath was administered by Captain Samuel Warren. Lieutenant Ellis will have his rank pinned on by his parents, Danielle and Gail Ellis. He received his first salute from his father, former Army Specialist Daniel Ellis. Congratulations, Lieutenant Ellis. Second Lieutenant Peyton Howard. Lieutenant Howard graduates Widener University with a bachelor's degree in criminal justice and will enter the Army as an engineer officer. As a cadet, he completed basic camp and advanced camp at Fort Knox, Kentucky. Lieutenant Howard's oath was administered by Captain Samuel Warren. Lieutenant Howard will have his rank pinned on by his parents, Christopher and Gretchen Howard, and his brother, Christopher Howard Jr. He will receive his first salute from Sergeant Major Patrick Compton. Congratulations, Lieutenant Howard. Second Lieutenant Gary Porlatin. Lieutenant Porlatin graduates from Neumann University with a bachelor's degree in psychology and will enter the Army as a quartermaster officer. As a cadet, he completed advanced camp at Fort Knox, Kentucky. Lieutenant Porlatin's oath was administered by Captain Samuel Warren. Lieutenant Porlatin will have his rank pinned on by his mentors, James and Brenda Kamig. He will receive his first salute from Sergeant Major Patrick Compton. Congratulations, Lieutenant Porlatin. Second Lieutenant Robert Pisano. Lieutenant Pisano graduates from Villanova University with a bachelor's degree in civil engineering and will enter the Army as an engineer officer. As a cadet, he completed basic and advanced camp at Fort Knox, Kentucky, Cultural Understanding and Leadership Program in Bulgaria. Lieutenant Pisano's oath was administered by his parents, Commander Retired Bob Pisano and Commander Retired Donna Forbes. Lieutenant Pisano will have his rank pinned on by his sister, Anna Pisano, and brother, Carlo Pisano. He received his first salute from Sergeant First Class Charles Mills. Congratulations, Lieutenant Pisano. Second Lieutenant Alexandra Service. Lieutenant Service graduates from Westchester University with a bachelor's degree in nursing and will enter the Army as an Army Nurse Corps officer. As a cadet, she completed advanced camp at Fort Knox, Kentucky, and nurse summer training program at Fort Sam Houston, Texas. Lieutenant Service oath was administered by Major Michael Rapaski. Lieutenant Service will have his rank pinned on by her parents, Robert and Deborah Service, and she will receive her first salute from her grandfather, former Army Specialist David Service. Lieutenant Service will be commissioned as a distinguished military graduate. Congratulations, Lieutenant Service. Second Lieutenant Joshua Williamson. Lieutenant Williamson graduates from Westchester University with a bachelor's degree in exercise science and will enter the Army as a medical service officer. As a cadet, he completed advanced camp at Fort Knox, Kentucky, cadet troop leading training at Fort Gordon, Georgia, and cultural understanding and leadership program in Argentina. Lieutenant Williamson's oath was administered by Major Michael Rapaski. Lieutenant Williamson will have his rank pinned on by his parents, Carl Williamson and Kathleen Sturba, and his sister Jess Williamson. He will receive his first salute from former Army Staff Sergeant Alfred Sturba. Lieutenant Williamson will commission as a distinguished military graduate. Congratulations, Lieutenant Williamson. Ladies and gentlemen, please rise for the posting of the orders. Attention to orders. The President of the United States has reposed special trust and confidence in the patriotism, valor, fidelity, and abilities of Daniel Azarian, Peter Burlett, Christopher Booker, Joseph Cusick, Robert Dietrich III, Eric Ellis, Eric Guzzi, Hayden Howard, James Yaya, Timothy Kennard, Joel Murphy, Justin O'Brien, Robert Pisano, Gary Portland, Evan Schultz, Eric Scott, Alexander Service, Patrick Villani, Joshua Williamson, Jason Z, and Brandon Young. They are therefore appointed to the grade of Second Lieutenant in the United States Army effective of 15th of May 2019. Ladies and gentlemen, the newly commissioned class of 2019. Please be seated. Each year, the Pennsylvania Military College alumni awards commissioning saber to the senior who has demonstrated the highest attributes of scholastic achievement, leadership excellence, and overall superior performance, leading to the selection of the Cadet Battalion Commander. At this year's Fall Battalion Commander, respectively, 2nd Lieutenant Joseph Cusick will receive the commissioning saber and Pennsylvania Military College commemorative coin from Mr. David McGulty, Esquire, PMC Class of 1963.
Can you come up? President Walton, members of the committee, our classmate General Torelli, and Colonel Schaefer and Colonel Student Guest, survived Colonel Schaefer, good to know you. God bless you in your retirement. It's my honor and privilege to be asked to participate in this service today. It's a deeply moving, sentimental time for me, for this is the 56th anniversary of my graduation from this institution
which was then known as Pennsylvania Military College, PMC, the second oldest military college in the nation. It's also the 56th anniversary of my commissioning, along with General Tillelli, as a young lieutenant on the parade field behind Old Main. I come to you as a voice from the past, bringing you a message of insight and truth for your future. It is the same message that we received as incoming cadets in 1959. That timeless message is this: that character counts. It counted then, and it counts more so than ever now. Dr. Woolman's predecessor from generations past, Colonel Hyatt, coined an epigram of truth for all young cadets at this institution. It is part of the wisdom literature of PMC and Widener that has stood the test of time and the devolution of our modern mores. His proverb was as follows: when wealth is lost, something is lost. Nothing is lost. It's been a long time. When health is lost, something is lost. When character is lost, all is lost. In the opening line of our PMC alma mater, we sang, "Beneath the dome of PMC, the cadets in gray march by, the banners of our loyalty held ever bright and high. Though weary years have called us forth from home to foreign sod, the truths you taught will hold us fast to country and to God." Weary years have indeed called me and my classmates forth from home to foreign and sometimes hostile sod. And yes, the truths that we were taught under this dome, as symbolized by this saber, have indeed held us fast to country and to God. Two of my classmates paid the ultimate price for the preservation of these truths by their combat service in Vietnam. On the plaque behind the young lieutenants over here, you will find their names: John Lance Gagan, affectionately known as Jack, and William James Stevenson, affectionately known as Buddy. My friend Jack was the top cadet and president of our class. He was the brigade commander. He was a young man of character and integrity, one of the most distinguished military students in the entire nation in 1963. Like you, Jack was the recipient of this saber 56 years ago. It's an historic ceremony behind Old Main. Retired President and former five-star General Dwight David Eisenhower reviewed the Pennsylvania Corps of Cadets prior to our commissioning ceremony. In return, Jack Gagan presented another saber to President Eisenhower, and we, the Corps of Cadets, were saluted and blessed by the Supreme Allied Commander of World War II and President of the United States, a man who put the phrase, "one nation under God," into our Pledge of Allegiance. Today, as acclaimed leaders in the Dauntless Battalion, you are continuing heirs and benefactors of that salute and blessing by General Eisenhower. By my presentation of this saber, I link you all back in time to that historic event in May of 1963. 2 years later, Jack would be killed in Vietnam in the Battle of the Adrang Valley. Jack's heroic story is portrayed in the Mel Gibson movie, We Were Soldiers. Jack's death was like his life, virtuous and noble. He received the Silver Star for gallantry in action, trying to save the life of one of his wounded troopers. It is with the sacred honor and cherished memory of Jack and Buddy from my class, Captain Nathan Rowdenbush from the class of '05 killed in Iraq, and on behalf of all members, living and deceased, of the long gray line of PMC and the Dauntless Battalion cadets, that this saber is passed on to you. There is one caveat, however. The saber comes heavy with responsibility and symbolism. The good news is that it's lightened by the heartfelt prayers of your loved ones and all the members of the Cadet Corps that have preceded you. Receiving this saber is very much like unto the anointing of a knight. On behalf of all your fellow officers, you are being sanctified and set apart for a noble and decent purpose. General Eisenhower told us history does not long entrust the care of freedom to the weak or the timid. In saving Private Ryan, Captain John Miller, as he lay dying, whispered into the ear of Private James Ryan, "James, earn it, earn it." In World War I, Flanders Field, Dr. John McCrae passed the torch to a new generation, saying, "If ye break faith with us who die, we shall not sleep." Abraham Lincoln spoke of the mystic cords of memory stretching from every battlefield and patriot grave to every living heart all over this broad land. On behalf of all those who have gone before, Jack, Buddy, Nathan, and all those